Welcome to the Inferno Cast. Today's guest went 17-0 in amateur kickboxing and boxing and recently made her boxing pro debut. But she also has 17 years of Hapkido experience. She's known as the $1 Million Beast, Kristina Castle. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Man, I'm good. I'm excited to talk to you because I get to speak with a lot of jiu-jitsu people and a lot of MMA people and not as many strikers. So I kind of wanted to go back to your start in Hapkido and see how that happened. If it was a parent, if it was watching TV, or just an after-school program you ended up in, and just kind of see how you started in martial arts.
So why I started the first case was my brother started and I had to bring him. So it's kind of like I had to do the tag along thing. So finally I was like, man, that looks really fun. And I bet I could be better than him. So I just very competitive with him. So I started doing it about 2 months after he did. And for me growing up, I was the biggest scaredy cat ever. I wouldn't even go downstairs in the dark, like by myself. I was so scared. I wouldn't walk outside if it was dark. And like, just the self-confidence that I think martial arts brings to you, even if you feel like you can't handle every situation. I don't know. I just felt so much more confident just by learning kicks and punches. Like, I don't know. It's a whole mindset that comes around with it.
It's so funny that, because you see so many siblings that bring, kids to martial arts classes and things like that. And it's so funny that that's kind of how you got started was, you're basically the taxi cab. And it's like, you know what, if I'm going to be here, I might as well join in. How long was it into the training before you started, I guess, taking it seriously, where you felt like this is something I really enjoy and I'm going to commit to? Was there a transition where that happened?
Probably about a month in, when I stopped being so sore that I couldn't walk. And I was like, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this. And then I could see where my brother was progressing, because he had been like this fat little kid and all of a sudden he was being able to jump and do all these cool kicks. And I was like, man, like, I enjoy this. It's something I enjoy. I saw the instructors and they would come in and they would be like, they would show the cool kicks. I want to be like them. So it was probably about a month in, as I said, once the soreness came off, and then from doing those splits, like, you feel like everything's torn in the first couple weeks. But yeah, about a month in, I was just like, I want to do this. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a quick transition, which I usually call people like that lifers. And when you do martial arts long enough, just like yourself, you've been in the industry, you can spot them where you're like, this person is going to probably do this for the rest of their lives. When you started teaching, was that a growth experience for you, or was that just kind of like the next step because you were naturally the leadership personality and outgoing, or did you have to grow into that role?
Honestly, I wasn't comfortable leading at first. I was kind of like out of my comfort zone. And so what was nice was he started having me teach techniques and stuff. So it was in a smaller group with one-on-one. And then he's transitioned me into more teaching the group class. And I was always like, don't look at the parents, just look at the kids and do what you know. And like, sometimes I would get all like twisted up. But I think maybe a couple months in, like, it becomes a comfort to you, and you don't even realize what's going on. It's just, you're zoned in on what you're doing. And I don't know, it took me a couple months though. I definitely wasn't that person that was just like, I'm a leader, I'm gonna go out there and lead these kids. No, that wasn't me at first at all.
So before we get into like the modern, martial arts part of it, with the boxing and kickboxing, up to this point, you got involved with the martial arts, you fell in love with it, the confidence that came with it, it made you feel different. And then you get into this leadership role and you grew into that and it gave you new skill sets. How did that translate to life outside of the gym for you?
I think the same way, just the confidence. I feel like also what came with that was putting myself out there on social media. It gave me a platform. And there's so many of the keyboard warriors that want to always critique you. And at first I was just so offended. I was like, oh my gosh, I have to respond to everybody. And like, I was like, wait a second, if someone came into the martial arts gym, like, you have your confidence there because you know your stuff. Like, if someone just came in and was trying to tell me exactly what was wrong with my Hapkido, and I'll be like, wait, but I'm a third degree, or I'm a fourth degree, or whatever, you can't tell me that. So like that kind of transitioned over. I'm like, I know my stuff. If I'm putting it out there, it's because I believe in it, and no one's gonna tell me. They can tell me their opinion. They can try to show me facts backing it, but like I don't know, that's kind of transitioned to that way. And then also just being able to do leading. I do a lot of youth groups, and I do a lot of going to schools and stuff and doing that. So I feel like that leadership role kind of just, it keeps on going in the world as well, not just stuck here inside the studio.
Yeah. When you were younger, did you envision yourself being somebody that would be out there and pouring into kids and teaching people and inspiring them and trying to help people see what they were capable of?
Kind of. I've always been a kid person. So like had three brothers. I have a ton of cousins. Like I was just always around kids. So I was always be like, okay, I'm gonna be the PE teacher. I'm gonna be this. Like we're playing. So I don't know. I think something along the line of that was always in my mind. And then this just kind of brought it to the forefront. Like, oh yes, this is what you're good at. So continue with that.
Was there a situation outside of the school that you can remember that was like, you handled it or you were successful at it because of the martial arts background, like that, the personality traits or the reason that you were able to achieve something or cope with something better? Was there anything that stood out?
I would say a lot of confrontations. I used to be, both me and my brother that do this as well, we used to be the biggest hotheads ever. Like you could tell us something and it would just be like, boom, I'm super mad. Like, and somehow, I don't know how this has transitioned to being me able to cope with my like anger as much, but I've been able just to be like, escalate the situations. Either if I see someone else getting bullied or stuff like that, and being able to go in and figure out ways to like figure out the situation, get everybody back on the right track. And I feel like that's one of the number one things I've got out of it, for dealing with real life, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
But,
I mean, when you look at kids that come in to a martial arts program, a lot of times parents are trying to build their confidence or, help them feel better about themselves. A lot of times it's that meek and mild kid that you're trying to pull out of their shell. But then people forget that there's this whole other piece of kids that come in with too much energy or they're overly aggressive. They have anger problems, self-control issues, that it really helps them as well. So when you look at you being able to cope with, the frustration and the anger and the hothead part, what do you think martial arts helped you with? How did martial arts help you solve that issue better? Is there anything that you can maybe put a finger on?
I don't know. I've asked myself that so many times. I think it's just the continued discipline. You learn to control your body, you learn to control your mind. And before, it's just like there's no control. It's just as soon as that button gets pushed, you're like, boom. But now you can like kind of control your body because you've been disciplined to do that. So I think that's the only thing I can go back to is that.
Yeah. Well, when you look at the fight game, do you think that it is noticeable when you have an angry fighter versus an intense fighter? Do you feel like
Yeah,
you know the difference?
I will say, I fight different because my last boxing fight, I was very irritated. And I fought completely different because I was irritated and I let that get into my head a little bit more. I was irritated because the person came in way overweight. I was irritated. Like it was just this, my coach disappeared on me 2 weeks out. Like there was just so much irritation and I just wanted to hit someone and that just kind of takes away your game plan. Like you don't have a game plan. You're just like, I just want to go out and just punch someone. Like,
Yeah.
and I feel like a lot of people, when they come out with that anger, and I know a lot of fighters have also said this in interviews, like I had stuff going on behind the scenes or something. I didn't fight my good fight. Like I didn't fight a smart fight. And it definitely transitions more to someone just being like intense, like I am intense, I'm ready, like focused versus anger.
Right. It's almost like you understand there's a difference of having ultimate intensity versus having, like a high level of anger, which can be emotionally compromising because sometimes your decision making paradigm gets off whenever you're angry and a little bit more emotional. And those are the small details, especially as a higher level competitor. You don't have margin for error that allows for that very much, and it can really disrupt your rhythm.
Mhm.
So how did you get into boxing? You're doing a traditional martial art with Hapkido, which a lot of people don't know much about Hapkido, Korean martial arts style. Do you want to give us a quick synopsis of what Hapkido is?
So Korean, well, Hapkido, as you said, is from Korea, and it's pretty much it's a self-defense martial art. There's a lot of hand-on-hand combat like style. It was mainly designed for in Korea. The royal bodyguards were trained in Hapkido to protect the royals. So it's a lot of more. If someone was in close, trying to get to them, they have to defend. We have no katas, no forms. Everything's done with an opponent, which is why I started Hapkido in the first place, because I was like, how does a kata, like, there's a time and purpose for everything, but I was like, how does a kata transition into me being able to do something? Like in my head, it was just like, nah.
Yeah.
So what I enjoyed about it was everything with Hapkido is with a partner. So you're being able to feel being grabbed and then having to react to that, or choked. You have to feel it being choked and then you have to get out of that for real. So it's, what I would say is it's very self-defense oriented. It's not flashy like Taekwondo. There is some Taekwondo kicks because it's from Korea. But for the most part, it's just pressure points, joint locks, twists, and throws.
Yeah,
And
I've heard it called the guerrilla warfare style of Korea. I once heard somebody describe it that way, where I was like, because it is a little bit of a hybrid, it's a mix. Because I have a big traditional background as well as the other arts, but I got to spend a lot of time with some Hapkido guys and doing Hapkido when I was younger, and it's a little bit more of that hybrid mixed style that I think kind of attaches more to like the intent of a lot of the old traditional styles, because there's some styles that went in a direction of being very sporterized and structured for kids, and then you got some of the styles that kind of held on to a little bit more of their roots. So I just wanted to give a little quick overview synopsis in case some people aren't familiar. Now on to boxing and kickboxing. So how did you make the transition?
So we have punches in Hapkido, but it's literally the martial arts style where you have one hand by your waist and you're doing this and you're doing punches, which is good for shoulder conditioning and developing the punch power. But I felt like my weakness was my hands. I'm like, I have good kicks, I have good throws, I have good twists. What can I develop on? And I was like, I don't feel like I have good punches. Like, I just don't feel like my punches are, like, I feel like my punches are fast here, but I'm not gonna sit in a fight and be like, okay, well, like, that's not gonna ever happen. So that's
Hey,
why I started.
you never know. That might be the new thing.
Yeah, I know. But so that's why I started into boxing, just to get my hands better. And then I was like, wait, I love this. It's so much fun to punch something. Like, it's really fun. So I started doing boxing. And then, of course, everybody's like, why would you just do boxing? You have kicks. Like, why? Like, you already have the kicks. Why would you not do kickboxing? So I kind of played both back and forth. So I would do one kickboxing fight and then do a boxing. And then it just kind of, and then, like all martial artists, I think stuff starts breaking down. So like my sciatic nerve started killing me, and I was like, I can't kick with this leg right now. It's too many kicks a day. It's just killing me. And then I started focusing more on boxing again, and then my legs started feeling better. So it was just the transition back and forth. So that's mainly why.
So how long were you boxing before your first match?
I had a smoker probably about 6 months in.
I had a feeling. I had a feeling it was quick. Just your personality and your style. Like you probably were like day one. Can I fight tomorrow?
See, that's weird for me. I love training. I don't love fighting.
Really?
So I could train all day long and love the training part, but I'm not I don't love fighting.
So what's the apprehension towards the fight?
It's not the apprehension. I don't like the weight cut. I don't like having to do the road work. Like every single day, I would just be exhausting myself trying to get running those 10 miles a day or whatever. And that was my two top reasons. I could train, I could spar, I could do everything, but I hate cutting weight because they'd always make me, I walk around like around 140, 145. They
Yeah.
make me fight at like 125, 120. And that's a lot of weight to cut. Like, it's not
Yeah.
fun at all.
No, that's
So,
well, okay. So you don't have, so it's not that you have a problem with the fight. You just have a problem with the weight cut and the road work. So you're basically like every other fighter on the planet. So yeah, but the whole apprehension of weight cut and training up to it, sometimes that's pretty normal. It's like, oh, okay, so here's like everybody else. That's fine. Um,
yeah.
did you ever have a preference of boxing versus the kickboxing? I know you kind of stuck with boxing because of the injuries, but was it your favorite? Was like, if you were completely healthy, would you do boxing or kickboxing all the time?
Boxing. I don't know. I think I focused a lot on the boxing over the years. So I feel, I almost got to the point where I feel more comfortable boxing now than I do kickboxing. Plus, you only got to worry about 2 of their hands versus 4 of their limbs. Like
Yeah.
it's, and then plus you don't have to deal with elbows and knees. I'd rather get punched with a punch.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I prefer boxing.
Yeah. Well, now when you look at the modern martial arts that are out there right now, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and MMA are two like very prominent styles that are just kind of taking over MMA's, mainstream. What is the reason in which you never gravitated towards BJJ or MMA? Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, you need to fight MMA if you're doing boxing or kickboxing. Is there anything particular that was like a reason why you didn't go down that path?
MMA, all the time I got asked to do MMA because I know all the throws. So like when I would be sparring MMA fighters, like they wouldn't expect throws because most people are not trained in typical like throws, especially from Hapkido throws. So like if someone were to kick or punch, I could throw them off of most any kick or punch. So there's so many times I'm like, this will be great for me because most people don't think about it. And I have trained jiu-jitsu. I think every woman should at least know the basics of jiu-jitsu. But I just don't like MMA gloves. I feel like I'm the wimpiest fighter right now, but I hate MMA gloves. Like they hurt your hands to punch. There's no protection. Like, I don't know. I almost every MMA fighter will say the same thing. They hate MMA gloves.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
They definitely never fit well. That's for sure. It's like, especially when your hands are wrapped good, you're just like, man, you can't get it on there. And you got these mittens that you're trying to grab with. But yeah, I was just curious why, you never kind of gravitated towards the MMA versus the boxing, or if there was something, because it's just different.
Even though I have trained jiu-jitsu and it is fun to roll, I don't like ground fighting. I feel like even in UFC fights or whatever, a lot of it is taken to the ground and then it's just continuously like trying to submit the other person to another submit. I don't know. I prefer the stand-up game. I like the striking part a lot better. So I've just, even though people keep on trying to transition me that way, I'm just like, no, I want to stick to what I like versus you trying to change me into something I'm not really am.
Yeah, well, and and I asked that question because it's kind of like in school. Sometimes people are a little bit better at math or English. Sometimes people are good at both, but a lot of times people have kind of a predisposition. And over the years, I've noticed that athletes sometimes have a predisposition or a favoritism to striking versus ground. And so that's kind of why I asked, because a lot of times that's what pulls people away from MMA, because they just enjoy the striking aspect so much more, to the point to where they're not worried about making a career in combat sports at any cost. Like, I don't want to be a famous fighter. I want to be, like a good boxer or a good kickboxer. Because a lot of people transition to MMA just because that's where the money is. That's where the bigger shows are. They think that it's more marketable. And I love that you're kind of adhering to your passions, because you're a striker at heart. And that's something I identify with, because I was a striker first, and I still just I love striking, and I have so much respect for it. And just people that have that mentality of being a striker, I'm biased, so I value that. But I just think it's a different mindset, because striking, you take so much physical damage when you can go do jujitsu or do MMA where you have the ground as the option, to get away from that damage. So how would you explain the safety of being a striker compared to what people think jujitsu and MMA offers?
Um, the safety as in like safety for your health or
Well, like the safety is in like, you train as a striker on a high level and yet, you're not getting brain damage. Your hands aren't broken. You're taking care of your body because you train correctly. So what are you doing as a striker to make sure that you're not taking too much abuse that breaks you down by taking hits or damaging your body?
I would say probably at the beginning of this, I wasn't taking care of my body. I got my nose broken. I got like so much stuff kept on happening. I had constant black eyes. And then you start getting to the age where you're like, wait, I'm not invincible anymore. Like stuff, everything hurts for a very long time. So I think I had to start developing like making sure I was wearing my headgear, even though I hated wearing the headgear. Like most people, like, well, it depends. If you're just doing light sparring, whatever. But I was always like, nah, man, I don't need a headgear. I'm fine. And then I would get like a concussion or whatever. But so I really feel like the headgear is necessary, unfortunately. And then I would say just I would always put off like massages and all that stuff because I was like, I don't need it. I'll get sore in a couple of days. But once I started actually getting into it, and also strength and conditioning also helped me a lot with my sciatic nerve and a lot of other like injuries I had. I had tennis elbow. I still have tennis elbow, but there's a lot of stuff that comes with all the different striking and stuff. But I think just doing the actual physical therapy, taking care of your body is going to be so important in the long run. And even now, I'm kind of like, nah, I'll be fine. But you always feel 1,000 times better when you actually do it. So it is important. I'm not saying I'm the one to look to for that, but it is important, and it will definitely help if you take care of your body.
How about training partners? Like how important do you feel that you train appropriately as far as like the mitt work, the sparring time, who you spar with, what your goals are during sparring? Are there like some rules or some general guidelines that you follow to kind of make sure you're training smart and safe?
I think who you have holding mitts for you and who you have coaching is so important. I've had so many coaches that have messed up well, that's how I got my tennis elbow and sprained my wrist from just bad people holding mitts. If you don't know how to hold mitts correctly and they're constantly jamming it, even it doesn't matter how good your punches are, it doesn't matter how strong your wrists are, it's going to wear down over time. And that is so important to have a good mitt holder for you. For training partners, what I've found, because there's not very many girls to spar, so they would always just send me out to different gyms. Sometimes my coach would be able to come, sometimes my coach couldn't come. So I was kind of like out in the lion's den. Sometimes like I show up at a gym and it would be like, oh, you're going to fight this girl, but she's so much huger than you. Like, I'm like, really? Like, and then, so I think you have to make sure when you go someplace, you have your coach with you. Is very important because they can kind of control the scenario where you're just there and you're like, they're just going to throw everyone at you because they can. And I found that was definitely a mistake. That's one time I went without my coach. I got my nose broken because they just kept throwing people at me. And I was like, I'm tired. Can I have a break? And they're just like, one more fight. I'm like, okay. And then boom, my nose was broken. I had to pull out of a fight. So I think definitely stick within your group of who your coach trusts, or when you go somewhere, make sure you have your coach with you. So it could be like your spokesperson for saying, no, she's had enough right now or whatever. Because you'll always think you could do more and it never ends up right.
A fighter, yeah. The worst question you can ask the fighter is, do you want to do another round? Because the answer is always yes. I remember early in my MMA, career, I was like, that was my rule that I'd started was, if somebody ever asks for one more round, I'll always say yes, because I didn't have a coach at this time, as far as like a legitimate organization or people that knew a lot. I just had my training partners. So I was like, oh, I'll make sure I get more work than anybody. So I'll always say yes. And oh my gosh, the injuries that come from that last round, whenever you're kind of
Mhm.
done, you're taking the gloves off and somebody goes, hey, you want to do one more? And you're like, okay, I will. And then you're injured. So I think that does illustrate an important point to people, that because it is a combat sport, there is a lot of push beyond reasonable limits. I mean, as a fighter, that's what you're in there to do, is push beyond reasonable limits. You're not going to say no when it hurts. You're not just going to give up. Well, that trickles into training too, whenever somebody pushes you in the round, or if they want to do another round. And especially whenever you're around another group of martial artists, there's this inherent pride and ego that comes with it, of like, well, yeah, I'm tough, I'll do another one, sometimes to our own demise. What are your thoughts on concussions and head damage, and how to train smart to make sure that you're being safe in a combat contact sport?
So from someone that's had multiple concussions, one of them being by my brother, um, you have to take the time off. You can't push yourself. And I know it's so hard. I remember my first time when I got a concussion, it was from a demo. Like, it wasn't even supposed to be a sparring match or anything. My brother was just supposed to do a scissor kick to me. We've already practiced it so many times. I was just supposed to lay down and fall nicely. But this time my legs got kicked up a lot higher, and it came straight down on my head. And I was supposed to fight later that day in a competition, and everybody, like the doctor's like, no, you can't do it. Like, you have a concussion. Like, don't. And I was like, man, I've been training. Like, I just want to, like, I'm fine. And they were like, no. So I didn't do it. And then I still had to work. So I'm here every day working, and I'm seeing kids doing the fun stuff, the kicks, the like falls, and all this stuff. I'm like, man, this is so annoying. And then there was like one time I was like, no one's watching. I'm just going to do a flip, because I was so good at them. And then, like, I was like so dizzy. My head was like killing me. I was like, okay, there is a reason for it. And I started seeing more spots, and like there's just different things. And I was like, okay. So then the next time I had a concussion, which was from a sparring match, not wearing my headgear. And same thing, like I tried to push it too fast, and I was like, all right, there is reasoning behind it. So now that I have that experience, and I've been around people that get concussions, I'm always like, okay, I know what you're going through, but you have to like take it easy. And there's no easy way to get around it. Like, it's not fun at all.
No, that's the toughest thing that you hear. A lot of experienced fighters and old school guys retired. That's one thing that I hear consistently, is take the time off to heal. But it's just so difficult, because when you're an athlete, that's what you do, and you go stir crazy. Because traditionally a lot of competitive athletes are real busybodies, and it's hard to sit still. It's hard to, like, not be physically active, and a little bit of ADD kind of mixed in there sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's just tough. And you see everybody else having fun and doing what you love, and you just got to sit there, and it is extremely difficult. So that goes back to, I think, what you talked about on the discipline that comes with martial arts, where you're able to focus in on what you need to do and have the discipline to do it regardless. Even when it is something that is fun and a part of your daily activities, but you have to plan for longevity. And looking at striking, do you think, and looking at it as striking from a female athlete, do you think it's different in the progression of a female athlete versus a male athlete as a striker, as far as training methodology, what you have to go through, what you overcome, different physicalities, mental perspectives? Or do you feel it's just kind of the same path and just different people do it?
It has to be individual. There's certain females that can lift more. There's certain females that can kick harder. It has to be individual. It can't be the just gender role. I will say, for the most part, I've always had male partners I've trained with, just because the amount of females trained is not near as much as males. And so I've done the same routines they've done. I've done the same, like, so everything's been geared towards a fighter, not necessarily a woman or a male. But when it comes to like sparring and stuff, obviously a guy can't go as hard on a girl as a girl can go on a girl. Like, it's just, it doesn't transfer that way. But there is some girls I want to say that can't handle the same amount of training, and it might not necessarily be because they want to fight or they don't want to fight. It's just they can't physically handle it. So they may have to be trained separately or differently just because of what their body is capable of doing. But I guess I'm blessed with a solid body, I guess. I don't know. But I've been able to do the same amount of training. All my strength and conditioning, all that's been the same, geared towards the same, just as a fighter, developing strength. Yeah. And it's in the same routine.
Yeah, I love that, because it's like there's genetic differences between everyone. And now there are consistent genetic differences that you usually see sometimes with, like you said, the gender roles, but there's crossover, like you're training athletes. And the goal, I think, is so much, it's not so much like, here's what we're going to do for the guys, for the girls, but it's almost like you're talking about different levels of attributes that people bring into the equation. You get somebody that comes in, they're naturally muscular, they have high level fast twitch muscle fiber, good hand-eye coordination, good instincts, a physical person, male or female, like they're going to go into a certain type of training that's going to fit them well, versus if you get somebody that comes in low athleticism level, they got struggle with coordination, they don't have a lot of fast twitch muscle fibers, they struggle.
And that could be male or female either too.
Exactly, where it's like it doesn't it doesn't really matter why their body is not performing at these levels. And I think that's where the martial arts is going now, where we are getting smarter as coaches to where we have different programs for people based on their physical and genetic output, so that you do have a system for somebody that comes in as completely athletic, and then you have a system for somebody that comes in that's super athletic, and then you get into weight classes and pounds per square inch, because like you said, sometimes, guys might have, a little bit of a heavier punch than some of the female athletes, but I've seen it vice versa too. So it's really a balancing act of where is your athleticism and what's your pounds per square inch impact power, because those make the best partners, because my friend Mickey Bay he's a pro boxer. I don't put on the boxing gloves with Mickey and be like, let's just spar. Like, I'm like, no way, man. Because he hits so hard, and he can be a good partner to where he can take care of me, but I would never want to get hit by him. And, and he's competes at 134 pounds, he's a lightweight and I'm a lightweight, but he hits so hard, versus somebody that's a heavier weight that doesn't have the technique or the muscular adaptation to hit hard. And like you said, it's hard to find training partners that are kind of in that range where you can grow and learn and work on your stuff, but they can also kind of give you some pushback without causing injury. And like you said, not having a lot of people as far as training partners, you have to travel out, which comes with inherent risk as well. If somebody was looking to get into the boxing, kickboxing, they want to take it seriously, what advice would you give them?
How bad do you want it? That's my, because I think everybody has that, like, they'll watch the movie. That's the same thing for martial arts. The kids watch Karate Kid or Kung Fu Panda, and I'm like, we want to be martial artists, and like they'll watch a UFC fight. Like, that's not that hard. I want to do that, but it's not easy. It kills your body. Like, there's fun aspects of it, but some people don't find it fun. Like, you get punched in the face a couple times, most people quit. They can't handle it. And I would just say, you got to think about how much you really, truly think you want it, because most people quit, even in martial arts. I think they say, like, the probability of someone quitting is like the probability of someone making it to a black belt is about 1 in 100 kids that signs up. So it's like, same thing applies to MMA or whatever, boxing, kickboxing. Probably it's pretty close to the same. Like, maybe they do with their one fight, they get their ass beat, And then they're like, no more, no more. I can't. This is not how I was supposed to plan. I was supposed to get that beautiful knockout and go get a belt, and that's how it was supposed to go. But that's usually
Yeah.
not how it goes.
They fall in love with the fairy tale. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely for most people, you might get that one good win. You might get multiple wins, but for the most part, it's just a very, very long path of disappointment, of getting to your fight, your weigh-ins, your opponent doesn't show up. About a couple of days out, your opponent pulls out, and you've already done all this weight cut, you've already done all this training. It's just such a seesaw of emotions. Like, it makes it so it's almost not fun to fight. And then for those people that are actually fighting, like, okay, like they got to fight, but how many fights do they not get on the path to get that fight? Because I know some people like that have had contracts with Golden Boy or whatever for boxing, and they've signed 4 fights a year contracts, and they haven't fought at all because their opponent keeps on pulling out. So because their opponent keeps coming out, even though they have that Golden Boy contract, which is, oh my gosh, I got signed with Golden Boy, they haven't got a single fight. So it's such a hard game.
It's a tough business. If you had to pick the main thing that being a combat sport athlete has fulfilled you with, if there was one thing about it that has made you whole, what would that be?
I think the main thing is just confidence, and also being able to get knocked down and get back up. I don't even know. Like, I feel like every day I'm here right now, as you know, all the martial arts gyms are closed. So it's like most people are going out of business. It's like you fought for this gym for so many years now, trying to get those students that were saying they were, oh yeah, my goal is to be a black belt, getting them back in here. And I don't know, like, I feel like right now you feel like I've trained these kids for so long. Like, you feel knocked down. Like, you feel like, okay, you train these kids for so long. You've made these connections with the community, and that support system, some people are supportive, but that support system is kind of failing you right now. Like, most people are like, well, we'll see how it goes. But we're like, well, we're offering different options. And they're just like, no, not right now. And so I feel like you took a huge hit, and now you got to stand back up. And I feel like that's the analogy I'm trying to take from it. I'm like, I've gotten knocked down. Every single time I got back up. So I'm trying to take that analogy for real life right now, and hopefully get this place back up and going again. So
yeah,
that's what I'm picking it from right now.
Yeah, that's really good, because a lot of times when you look at people that get into the martial arts or become competitive fighters, a lot of it is based on them proving to themselves what they're capable of, showing and demonstrating to themselves that they can rise above, that they can overcome. Not always about the victories. And that's where you see the true martial artists come out in different people. Whenever the goal is not to get the recognition, the goal is to see if they can grow as an individual. So if you were going to try to define or help somebody find happiness or fulfillment in life, like, where would you explain, or how would you try to make an analogy for them to find that happy fulfillment position in life? Like, what really matters?
I think for me, I'm such a people pleaser for the most part. I want to try to make everybody happy. I want to make sure everybody is getting the best out of me at all times. And especially as a martial artist, I took so much time away from me to teach. And I feel like that took away from my growth as well. And I think you just have to make sure you make time for yourself. You'll be much more happy when you're being able to feel like you're getting growth as well. If you kind of feel like you're stagnant, I feel like your happiness goes down and becomes a job more than your passion. And I think that's something over the years I've had to make sure, okay, even though this is my business. I have to be here all the time. I have to make sure it's growing. I need to be growing as an individual to make sure I'm being able to give the best of my ability to everybody else. So
Yeah, that's a really good answer, because when you look at human beings, usually at our core, there's a couple driving factors of feeling that we're growing as an individual, that we're individually progressing. And then the other piece of that is to feel like we're contributing to something bigger than ourselves. And your whole analogy and value system you just explained was building others up, pouring into your students, building up the school, but then also as an individual, make sure that you continue to grow and you continue to progress, which, those are usually major indicators of highly successful people, which the definition of success is different for different people. But my perspective of success is when you have a well-balanced life, you enjoy what you do, you love your passion, and you cope with struggles well because you're fulfilled. And I think that that really gives a lot of insight. I love the fact that you're just a hardcore striker, because that's just always, close to my heart, because it takes a different kind of person to want to be primarily a striker. And I feel like your career has definitely got good trajectory, and all the momentum you had from the boxing and kickboxing with that traditional background makes you a very well-rounded martial artist. Appreciate you taking time to talk to me today. Is there anything you'd like to finish with?
No, I appreciate you coming on here and having me on here. It's been fun. It's, as you said, you're a martial artist as well. So it's like we're all shut down when we're finally being open. So it's being able to hear, different people's perspective, and it's nice.
Yeah, it's encouraging. Well, I appreciate the time. We'll definitely stay in touch.
All right. Thank you.